Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well this Sunday. So I'm joined once again by two very special guests for this next Dark Horse Disc episode. We have John from JC Rock and Metal Reviews. Hey John. And we have Hector from Chill Dudes and Couch Reviews as well. So this is episode number 4 of the series. This is Dark Horse Discs. This is us discussing albums which are often overlooked by fan bases. Or just generally. And this time we're looking at Allison Chains' Black Gives Way to Blue, which came out on the 29th of September 2009. And it was the 17th anniversary of the Dirt album, another great album. So we're going to start today. I think we'll do differently from what we did with the Deftones. We started with Hector last time. So I think this time we'll start with John, and we'll do what we usually do, which is just to share our first kind of memories of our experience with the album. So, John, do you want to kick us off today?
Sure. So this one came out in 2009. That was kind of a period in my life. I was going through a lot of things in my life, and I wasn't really into the music scene. So I discovered this a little later, maybe 2011, 2012, around that time. And I was actually surprised because I didn't know Allison Chains. They kind of reformed. So, this was a time when I was, able to listen to stuff on YouTube, and, I listened to it, and I think my first impression was, it sounded a lot like their older stuff. So the new vocalist, William Duvall, they chose somebody who had a vocal style or a voice similar to Lane Staley. So I noticed that, if you're unfamiliar with this band and you listen to this, you might not even know it's a different vocalist than, the original. He does sound very similar. So I thought it was very good, and I liked it because it just sounded just like another Allison Chains album. They didn't really update their sound. I know Jerry Cantrell took over more of the vocals, so that might be like the biggest difference, being that in the earlier albums, Jerry Cantrell did vocals, but he was kind of more in the background, but now he's more in the forefront. So I did like that aspect of it, because I think, Jerry Cantrell, I always thought that he was like a really good vocalist, and then, he was even like just as good as Lane Staley. Lane Staley was kind of like the star of the original Alice in Chains formation. So that's what I'm saying. So listen to this one, and then the next one, the devil made it, whatever, the devil dinosaurs.
Put dinosaurs here.
Right?
The devil put the dinosaurs here.
The devil put the dinosaurs here. That's another good one. I think I like all of them. And maybe like the last one, I maybe like the least, but out of the newer albums, I think this one and the devil put the dinosaurs here are like really good albums. So. I mean, yeah. So that's what I'm going to say about this. That it was just, I liked it a lot. I thought it was just it continued with their sound, and it was a very good album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, Hector, your memories of this one?
So I did listen to this. I did buy it on release date. At first, when I heard that Alice in Chains was reforming, I was a little bit like on the fence at first, because like, how do you replace Lane Staley? Like,
yeah.
I felt like it can't be done. But I know what John said, that William Duvall kind of like, there's some similarity, but I don't think he's copy pasting Lane. And like he said, Jerry Cantrell takes more of the vocal duties. But a difference on this free later Alice in Chains album to the beginning is like they do more dual vocals. And I think they do that to like make it sound like they did back before them, because Lane had such a great voice. But I think Jerry Cantrell does great lyrically. And Jerry, like, people forget Jerry Cantrell, like Alice in Chains was as much his baby as Lane. Like, I think he was always the leader, the songwriter. And at first I was on the fence, because I didn't think it was going to happen. But I think I listened to A View from the Looking View, some songs, and I was like, wow, this sounds great. So I was really excited to have Alice in Chains back, because at that time, Soundgarden was not putting records. Nirvana obviously was disappeared, and that was a time like that type of music like was dormant, and it was more like metal, death metal, other things that was out. And actually, in my top 20 of that year, that album came number 2, and the only reason it came number 2 is because Mastodon released "Crack the Sky." Because if it wasn't for that Black Gives Way to Blue would have been my number 1 album of that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an album that I think it was a great comeback album. And it was a comeback album that it went under the rug. Like no one was expecting it. So I don't know if the band felt the pressure, but I'm sure they did, because they took a long time. At least they didn't do it like it was 7 years after Lane had passed. But I'm glad that they put it out, and I think it's a great album. And when it came out, I listened to it so much. I have it on CD, but it's not here with me physically. But yeah, Black Gives Way to Blue. I loved it then, and I love it now.
Yeah, I remember. Actually, when this came out, I was in a big prog rock phase, listening to lots of prog rock bands like Pink Floyd, Marillion, all those kind of bands. So I'd taken a bit of a time out from metal, which it was a rare point in my life where I wasn't listening to a lot of heavier stuff. I was exploring prog a lot. That's what I remember of that year, was I was exploring quite a bit of prog. And about kind of 2008, 2009, 2010, I started to veer towards more progressive tastes in my music. So when this album came out, it wasn't immediately on my, I must listen to this. Because like a lot of other people, I was still, it can't sound as good, surely, as the Lane years. And when, you had Facelift Dirt, Jar of Flies, and their Tripod album, I was thinking, is this going to be, and I was a little bit cynical, I think, a bit like probably you guys were at first, because coming after those, a couple of those early albums, Dirt in particular, just amazing album. I was thinking, well, how, but as with all things, you don't know until you actually try them. And I think I got to this one probably sort of a year or so after it came out. I finally listened to it all the way through. I'd seen the Your Decision video. No, we're not going to go into tracks yet, but I'd seen that video and remembered that video and the song, and thinking, this is good. Even though it's not Lane singing the lead vocals, or the vocals with Jerry as well, I thought this sounds pretty good. So I gave it more of a chance, and as time has gone by, this album has crept into my all-time favorite albums. It's honestly, I now completely love this album to bits. It's been a bit of an evolution over time, but I think the more I listen to it, the more it still just does something for me, that in a similar way, because I don't think with the Dirt album, I was hugely sort of into that on my first couple of listens. But the more I've been with Dirt, the more I've loved that over the years. And it's the same thing sort of happening with Black Gives Way to Blue now. Even though the one thing that's missing from this album, which all the old school Allison Chains fans that won't listen to anything from their new era will say, is Lane's not there. So it's just not the same. But I mean, as a record, if Lane hadn't have, maybe if Lane hadn't have existed, would this album actually be regarded as something even more than it is? I mean, I don't know. I'm getting into Dark Horse territory a bit too soon there. But yeah, so that was my first memories of this one. It took me a bit of time to get back to it. So let's now go around for a second time. And with John, so why do you think this might be a bit overlooked? And what are your 3 favorite songs from this? And I found that really difficult to pick 3 songs.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing why it's a Dark Horse album is because there's no Lane. I think there are going to be people who just won't give it a chance just because they say, okay, there's no Lane, it's not Allison Chains. That's a big thing in music now. When they change a singer some people just won't,
They just
want to give it a
can't
chance
live
or want
past
to listen
it.
to it. So I think that's the big thing with this album. When a singer changes, it can go either way. It can sometimes just a band gets forgotten, or there are rare cases where in the older days, I'm thinking AC/DC, Van Halen, Black Sabbath, where the change of singer was actually some of their best albums. But back to this, I think that's just the main reason. I think just, and also because there has been like a very long gap between albums. You're going from like 1995 and then the Unplugged album, and then up to like 2009. So that's like a really long gap. You got a new audience. You got younger people. They might not really know who Allison Chains is. So I think that's the main reason. As far as my three favorite songs, probably I'm gonna go with the popular ones, but Check My Brain. I just love the guitar riff. It's almost like it's like one note, but they're like bending the note in a way that they kind of make it sound very interesting. First time I heard that, I really love that song.
It's a good one.
Your Decision, another one. It's one of those ballads that I think that could have been on like the Sabbath EP. That type of sound.
Yeah,
Possibly even like Jar of Flies, but it's just one of those great, like Allison Chains always does these really great acoustic ballads. And I think especially with Jerry Cantrell singing, I think that was like a perfect decision. And my three is Lesson Learned, and that's because it just sounds like a classic Allison Chains type of sound, where those kind of like deeper, like darker vocals, kind of like that, like darker sound, those really, heavy guitar riffs. So Lesson Learned really captured just the essence of their original sound. So those could be my three. I know those are like the most well-known ones, but pretty much I probably could pick a couple others, but those are my top three. Yeah.
All good picks, though.
nice. So yeah, so we're talking now why we think the album was overlooked, or maybe it was a dark horse album. So obviously, Lane not being there is the number one reason, and also the gap. It had been, I think, like 14 years since they had released the Tripod, the Dog album. So a lot of people were hesitant, or maybe would say that's not Alice in Chains. I can say I have a friend that every time I'm listening to Alice in Chains, and he's like, which album? And I'm like, oh, it's the newer one. And he's like, that's not Alice in Chains. I'm like, okay, buddy, okay. And I ask him, have you listened to it? He's like, I refuse. So there's that example. I have a friend that refuses to listen to the album, and he says it's not Alice in Chains. So that's the type, like, that's something that happens sometimes. People think, but I never thought people thought that it was disrespectful. It took time. And something that I think about this album, Black Gives Way to Blue, this is basically a love letter to Lane. This whole album, it's a love letter to Lane. When I listened to it, I remember I posted at the time, Lane would be proud. Like, this is a amazing album. And you say mentioning 3 tracks. That's very difficult because there's no weak tracks on this album. But I'm gonna go a different route from JC, and I'm gonna name like maybe some songs that are different from the album. To me, Looking in View is a great song. I think that's one of the longer songs at 7 minutes. It even has like some proggier elements to it, and I love the riffing on it and the way the gam vocals are on that one. So I thought that's a great track, and I think that's the track of that album that I love the most. I love the singles, but I love that song. I love Lesson Learned too. I think that's a great track, great melodies on it. And the album Closer, which is a ballad of 3 minutes, Black Gives Way to Blue, has Elton John playing piano on it. And I think it ends the album on such a beautiful note. And it's probably very overlooked because like it's the last song of the album. It's like a shorter song, but it's a very beautiful, haunting track.
Very classy song. Yeah.
And So yeah, I obviously love Shake My Brain and Your Decision and All Secrets Known, but I wanted to mention maybe lesser known tracks that I think deserve attention. And Black Gives Way to Blue, you know, it's the lyrics are just beautiful, and it's a great way to end an album that every song is great. So those are my picks.
Mhm.
Yeah, great picks as well. And yeah, so for me, I think I would just echo what you both said. I mean, this particular album, the reason why it's a dark horse is one of the most obvious reasons, I think, of the series so far. When you have a singer that passes away and you just can't replace that singer, however hard you try. I mean, there was only one Lane Staley with that voice, which is pretty unique as well, I think. Very difficult, you know, to replace. And I think anyone who is an old fan coming back to the band probably would be doing so with a bit of hesitancy about coming to this album thinking, yeah, let's go for this, you know, whereas they might have got some new fans from that era. I mean, I think I remember seeing the video for Your Decision on a music channel. Can't remember if it was Scuzz or something like that, where it was the channel I was watching. But yeah, my three favorite tracks for this probably so there's one track I think which is different from both of yours. So Your Decision is one. I think that's a great song, and you know, showcasing a lot of what I like about Allison Chains in that song. I really like Private Hell.
Oh yeah,
I think it's an incredible song, and to me, it actually reminds me a little bit of the style of the track Wood, with its kind of build-ups and that slow kind of burning big chorus, which is really expressive. And the last time they sing Hell in that last chorus just sends me chills. Like when I think Jerry and William, I'm not sure if they're doing it together, but when Hell gets sung that last time, there's something really chilling about that in the last chorus. That it gets me really kind of wow. So Private Hell, and then I think Black Gives Way to Blue, Hector's Choice. And there is a performance by Chris Cornell's daughter, Lily Cornell Silver, whose mum is the manager of Allison Chains. I think her name's Susan Silver. I think I looked that up. And so Lily Cornell Silver, the daughter of Chris Cornell and the Allison Chains manager, performs that song live at an event. I think it was called the Mo Pop fundraiser event. It's on YouTube. I think what I'm going to do is drop a link to that video in the description box so people can watch it. And she does a really kind of understated performance of that last song, almost like, because obviously she lost her father, Chris,
yeah,
as we all know. And so it was kind of really haunting, because I think she must have been feeling the emotion that kind of obviously Jerry had intended the song for Lane. And she was putting it, you know, almost like felt like a tribute to, you know, I guess to anybody who's experienced loss. That song can be felt to a great degree. And yeah, I think it's a really great song, that one. All right, so I think those are my three choices. I think I'm settled with those. So we'll go around one last time to discuss what we usually do, I think, which is where would we put this in this case in a really pretty great discography. So this is difficult. So we'll go to John for this.
Yeah, I think I did an Allison Chains ranking. You know, this was a while back, over a year ago. I might have had this one fairly low, but just because it's low doesn't mean it's a bad album, because, you know, this is one of those bands with just a very solid discography. I would say, I don't know, it might be like ahead of the Dog album.
Okay.
But, you know, the top ones are definitely, you know, there's Dirt and Facelift, those are definitely the top ones. And then if you count the EPs, I would probably put Jar of Flies high up, and even Sap, because I always love Sap. But I think this one might be equal with, you know, The Devil Put the Dinosaurs Here. So how many albums they have, if you count the EPs, I think like 8 or 9. So I would say it would land in the middle, but
Okay.
you know, this
Right.
This band it just has a very solid
Yeah.
discography, so it's kind of very hard to rank. But even though it's in the middle, it's not saying it's a bad album. It's just that the other ones are just like really good.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Cool. Hector?
So let me start by saying that Allison Chains to me has no bad albums. That's a band that has no bad albums. Out of the new albums, I think I like Black Gives Way to Blue a little bit better than Devil Put Dinosaurs here. Rainier Fog, I like it, but it's the least good one. But it's still great.
I think it's
but
good.
With the classics, I would say Dirt will always be my number one. Then I think Facelift, number two. And I think this one, Black Gives Way to Blue, I would put it 3 or 4, right in between Jar of Flies, because it's better than the Tripod album. So yeah, it's really high. You know, maybe a few years ago I wouldn't have put it that high, but the years have passed, and it's a dark horse record. It's really a great comeback album that did it silently, because you know sometimes when bands are going to release like a comeback album, they make a whole fuss about it. But no, Alice in Chains just released this like super quietly and let the music speak for itself. Yeah. So yeah, I regard it really high on their discography. And I think if you're an old school Alice in Chains fans that haven't given the new lineup a chance, I say do it. You know, listen to this album. Not thinking, oh, Lane's not there. Just listening to it like you're listening to a new band, and appreciate it, because there's some great gems here in this album that are often overlooked because people don't want to give it a chance. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Black Gives Way to Blue, and that's how I would rank it.
Yeah, I did a ranking of Allison Chains discography, not including their EPs, as I remember. I don't think I did their EPs. Probably sometime last year on my channel. And if you've seen that, you'll know that this album was actually second, just behind Dirt. So, I mean, remembering that, yeah, for me, I regard this as, you know, one of my all-time favorites. Not above Dirt, but you know, Dirt is just is kind of in the league of its own, really, that album, I think, in a way. And it kind of has that iconic status. So, but yeah, I actually like this a little bit more than even Facelift. I don't go back to Facelift a huge amount. I know it's got a lot of great songs in there, and it's kind of surprising, but maybe it's also because, you know, I wasn't sort of around to remember a lot of those earlier Lane albums anyway. So when I was getting into the newer era, I was still kind of, you know, I'd known a lot of those older albums, and I loved Dirt, but it wasn't so kind of, perhaps I wasn't so, you know, obsessively kind of connected to a lot of those really early albums, is kind of what I'm trying to say, I think. So yeah, I actually love this album a lot. And yeah, it is definitely a kind of a dark horse in their discography, as I think, you know, John, when you were talking about The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here being a similar way, that is also, for me, another dark horse. The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here is a really strong album too, but for me that one's a little bit longer. So yeah, and it kind of, you feel the time on that one a little bit. So I wouldn't put that one super high, I don't think. But yeah, anyway, so I think we're near the end of the video. We can sort of share our final thoughts. So I want to just take this moment to say, as always, a big thanks to my guests again. John from JC Rock and Metal Reviews, and Hector from Children on the Couch. Do drop a sub to both their channels. Both have great content. You know, JC has a lot of really great reviews on his channel, lots of great rankings, and really comprehensive coverage of lots of the current, you know, releases coming out. As does Hector, Children on a Couch Reviews, as well as his series of really great interviews with bands, particularly kind of underground bands that are up and coming. So do also drop a sub to Hector. Children on a Couch, and to my channel, of course. You probably know, if you're following these videos on my channel, The Green Man, I do reviews, rankings, and some sci-fi, fantasy, and horror videos as well from time to time. Sub too. Otherwise, from me, thanks for joining us for this 4th episode of Dark Horse Discs. Until next time, from me and from my guests, bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.